The restaurant industry commissioned a poll on the issue of the minimum wage. And basically the way these things work, for those of you who don't know, they're fishing for an answer. That's what they're doing. So the idea is, let's ask loaded questions. Let's get Republican pollster. They picked Frank Luntz, who's a notorious Republican pollster. And let's try to get the answer that we're looking for so that then we can, fish this around at all the media outlets and say, see, look what we have here. And then if they got the answer they wanted, it would have been run by, National Review and Washington Times and right-wing outlets all across the country. Daily Caller, Breitbart, they would have ran the headlines like, Americans oppose increasing minimum wage. But that's not what happened. What happened is they didn't get the answer they were looking for, and then you hear womp womp, and then the Intercept covered it and exposed what was going on here. So take a look at this. A majority support raising the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour. And the question was, do you personally support or oppose raising the federal minimum wage to at least $10 an hour? 71% support it. Just 22% oppose it. And you can see the specific breakdown there, totally support versus mostly support versus somewhat support, so on and so forth. Let's take a look at the next one here. They want the increase in spite of the costs. So it says if you had to choose, you would say the government should increase the federal minimum wage even if it also increases the cost of food and service to customers. 71%. Keep the federal minimum wage the same even if the average food service employee can't make ends meet. 29%. So that's where the trick is. So the first poll question is, hey, do you support raising the minimum wage to at least $10 an hour? That's a straightforward, fairly objective question in the way it was framed. And remember, a lot of stuff hinges on how stuff is framed. And they got 71%. The trick is, the right-wing tinge that they put on it is, hey, would you be in favor of increasing the minimum wage even if it increases the cost of food and services to customers? So that's like there are consequences. Are you sure about raising the minimum wage? 71% said yes. Raise the minimum wage. Raise it, even if it increases the cost of my sandwich or my fucking paper towels or whatever. Yes, raise it. So listen, this goes back to a point that we've made on the show time and time again. The American people, when you go issue for issue, they're solidly left-wing. It's not even close. Now, what happens is a bunch of Republicans have cited the fact that there was a poll years ago where people were asked about labels. And it turns out when you ask people about labels, they don't know dick about labels. They just know what they feel like they may or may not be. So when you ask the American people where you fall on the political spectrum, the most common answer was, I say I'm kind of center-right. Like I'm moderately conservative. That's how people answer when you ask them and you just frame it with labels. Now, again, then you have to dig into the question, well, what does that mean? What does being a moderate right-winger, moderate conservative actually mean in terms of the policies you support? And when you match up what moderate right-wing policies are versus what the American people believe, they're nowhere in the same fucking ballpark. They're miles apart. And when you go issue for issue, the American people, they're not even, some people like to say, oh, the American people are center-left. They're not even center-left. They're just left. They're very fond of democratic socialism. So here's one example here. Hey, do you want to have a living wage? Yes. Okay, do you want to raise taxes on the rich? Well, about 58% say yes to that. Do you want legal marijuana? 61% say yes to that. Do you want, gay marriage? Now it's over 60%. 64% say yes to that. Do you want to continue the war in Afghanistan? All the way back in 2017, it was only 17% of the American people that supported that. And the list goes on and on. You mentioned the issue. Now it's 60% for Medicare for all. Free college, 58%. So you go issue for issue, and the American people are like, okay, we want free college, we want free health care, we want paid vacation time, we want to tax the rich more, we want to end the wars. I mean, it's overwhelming. And then even when, I love this poll because even when they try to frame it in the right-wing way to skew it a little bit, and they skew it, it's subtle enough where they'll have the plausible deniability where if I bring this up to Frank Luntz, he'll be like, what? No, I'm just saying, this is an objective question. Well, you asked, if you raise the minimum wage, what if that increases? What if the cost of food and services to customers goes up? Ooh. That's an attempt to scare people off that position. But the exact same number held strong and said, yeah, I don't care. Go ahead, raise my sandwich cost 8 cents. I'd rather the person working gets a living wage. Because people, when push comes to shove, most people are fundamentally decent. You know, the American people don't want to do offensive wars. The elites want to do offensive wars. The military-industrial complex wants it because it's fucking profitable. The status quo wants it because there's a lot of jobs and all that tied to it. But the American people don't want that. So this is, if anything should give you hope, it's this. Because even though the Republican Party in Washington, D.C. is so far gone and crazy and corrupt, and the Democratic Party is, you know, not even on the left. They're fucking center-right corporatist warmongers also, and they're also corrupt. Even though that's the case, understand that the people and their sentiments, their instincts, are really spot on. So it's just a matter of somehow managing to get a government that reflects the will of the people. And that starts with getting money out of the system so that we actually have a debate of competing ideas and philosophies, as opposed to this competing donors and which donor class gets their agenda implemented, because that's what we have right now.